All right, look like we're running. Okay. Geez, every time I try to do a stream on YouTube, it seems like it changes up all the settings and things. Every time I think I'm using Hangouts, that works, and then every time I try to do that again, it's like, nope, we're not using that anymore. Make up your bloody mind. Make it easy for me to figure this shit out. I'm dumb as fuck when it comes to this, okay? But anyways, so let's get our caffeinated beverages of choice. In fact, I don't have one because I'm not a caffeine guy. I don't drink coffee or any of that shit, but welcome to the Saturday Morning Soapbox, number 5. This one's probably going to be a bit of a shorter stream just because most of the topics this week are not necessarily the ones that I think I can rant forever on. I mean, it's me. I can still make these go for an hour if I really wanted to, but a lot of the stuff is more short and sweet. So this might be maybe 45 minutes. Maybe it ends up being an hour. Maybe I go crazy along with that like I normally do, but I always seem to underestimate myself. So we'll see what happens. But first off, I just wanted to go over my Morgan Riley video that I posted earlier this week. That was after the alleged homophobic slur that was never actually uttered on the ice. The reaction to that video is, well, I mean, it's not like there were that many views on it, but I mean, the reaction to it was mostly, let's say, interesting. I think, generally speaking, the people that want to react to these things immediately are the ones that are not going to go very well over it. People that I know personally who watched it have told me that, they agree with pretty much most things that was said in that video. In terms of the YouTube comments, though, I will say that the video did at least remind me how ridiculous YouTube comments are. It's been a long time since I've had to deal with them, and I kind of miss that. I miss having the fun of reading some of the stupid shit that gets commented on my videos. So to the one guy, I guess, that was, a little bit mad about the thumbnail I used and then decided to go on a parent's basement rant on me, I really hope you were trolling, because if you weren't, you're going to need some help, bud. But anyways, let's see. First topic that I want to go through. It's kind of all over the place. I know what I'm going to end with. I'm probably going to talk about another censorship spiel when it comes to video games, because of obviously what we've seen with Devil May Cry 5, and it's continuing to go even further than that. But I'm going to start with something that's actually just a little more casual, something that's kind of recent with me and ongoing, and that's the fact that I'm honestly not as interested in multiplayer games as I used to be. I've been noticing, especially this year, that I think very much in the same sense of how after the PS2 era, my interest of JRPGs kind of started to drift away a bit. And I think, again, that's large in part to the idea that I overplayed. And I think that's kind of why things are changing back to what it was in the PS2 era, because the entire 360 and early PS4 was all like multiplayer shooters. I was playing NHL for a few years in a row, like very, very religiously. I was doing a lot of like MMO stuff. Obviously Destiny was a big deal with me. And then after that, it just seems like everything's kind of gone away. Like I've tried to get into Destiny 2 some more since, I first started with it, and it's just not working. Monster Hunter World seems to be the lone exception to the rule, but Monster Hunter World, I don't know if I'd necessarily consider the same kind of multiplayer game, because I guess when I'm looking at multiplayer, I'm talking about like competitiveness to it. But I mean, I'm finding that now I'm kind of reverting back to where I was when I was playing either a lot of JRPGs or a lot of open world games that I can just kind of relax in. And I think that's probably a big reason as to why. I mean, I've said it before, I don't like playing overtly hard games anymore because I don't have the time nor the patience to spend, a number of hours learning everything and being able to be a lot better at a game that is kind of designed to really kick your ass for a while. And, especially when, you have to be very tight with the purse strings like I do right now, you don't want to buy a game that you may immediately drop because it's just too hard and you're getting frustrated, which is why you probably won't see me playing games like Dark Souls or Bloodborne, or I'm not sure how hard Sekiro will be when that comes out. But games of those ilk, I tend to just completely drift away from because it's too much. To give you a great example, I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn right now, and that game is something that I tried playing before when it first came out, and it didn't go very well. I played it on normal, and it was fine for a while. Like, I really enjoyed the stealth aspect to it, the strategic aspect to everything. But once you got to the enemies that were really difficult to either one shot or to get a couple of shots and then be done with it. Like, I remember the bellowbacks being really difficult. There's the mission where you're in I think it's the Ring of Steel, where you have to sneak around a bunch of enemies and try to blow up a cache of blaze. And I tried that mission for hours. And this is when I was still having some level of patience. I must have gone like a good 5 hours trying to go through that mission. And I just couldn't do it because the problem was I'd never be able to stay quiet long enough to get over there. I wasn't finding the way to sneak through. I just wasn't quite getting what I wanted out of it. And that frustration caused me to put it down. I mean, obviously the distraction of other games helps, but in the end, it was just the sheer frustration of not being able to complete something that just had me drift away. And now, fast forward to now, I'm waiting for MLB 19, the show, to come out so I can use that as my, in between game, just the game that I like to come back to, grind a couple of things out, and then when something else catches my interest, I go and move on to that. Right now, I'm replaying Horizon again because I wanted to see if maybe I can rekindle the interest that I had in it before, because I really did like the game up until the point that I got overly frustrated with it. So what I'm doing now, I tried playing it on easy first. And once I got to that same spot again, I'm like, okay, this is a little much. So I did the what's the word I'm looking for? It's a transgressional thing that I just did, is that I'm playing on the story mode difficulty, which, if I remember correctly, means the enemies do, like, I think only 10% of the damage they normally do on normal to you. And then I do about 400 times the damage, or 400% damage, I think, something like that. And it's making the game a lot more bearable for me, just because I can go into like major enemies and be able to have fun with the battle rather than be stressing because I'm having to constantly be running and doing all that stuff. And I'm now level 32 and probably a good 20 hours into it, and I'm enjoying the hell out of it. And I think it speaks to that I've kind of figured out where I am with my playing ability now. I shouldn't say playing ability, but more my level of tolerance and patience, I guess. So now I'm playing a lot of games on the easier difficulty. Like when I played Persona 5, I played again on normal, and that game, I wanted to play it the same way that I would play like a Persona 4, where I would play the dungeons and just keep going until I finish it all in one shot. And the problem with Persona 5 is that your items get so limited that it's almost impossible. Like, I finished Kamoshida's dungeon, which is the first one, and literally had nothing left. I had almost no items. Like, I basically used everything I had to get through that dungeon. And that was the point that I'm like, okay, I can't be doing that. So I had to lower the difficulty again so I could get a little more money, and items were dropping a little bit more. The enemies were a little bit easier, and it made the game, again, a little more enjoyable, because now I'm at a point where just the stress levels and the sheer lack of patience that I have is kind of causing me to have a need to play games where I can just breeze through or be completely overpowered and just enjoy the mechanics of it, rather than having to go through the motions of learning games. And this is going to apply probably down the road when JRPGs start to really make a push again, because they're not really at this point. I mean, sure, there's a lot of them, but they're always like, if you remember the PS2 era of JRPGs, you remember that there was just an absolute string of JRPGs that were literally just anime girls on the cover and like the most haphazard, like, put in mechanics, like no thought to them. They were either as dull as fuck, or they were so complicated that you're like, dude, this isn't a fighting system. This is like fucking chess. I can remember like games like Magna Carta, Ars Technica. Like, those are games that I remember getting because I was really interested in JRPGs at that point, and got burned because those games are either too complicated, or they were boring, or they just weren't that interesting in terms of the story. And that was kind of the thing that I think a lot of people forget about JRPGs, is that they really carry stories beyond what most games are capable of doing. It's why games like the Persona series, games like Final Fantasy, until we get to 13 and up, I guess at that point, those are the reasons, those are the games that we go to because they have not only, not counting 8, a really good mechanical system for their entire game, and then on top of that, the story is phenomenal. And if only we were having a few more of those games, it would be great for me at this point because I'm as open to JRPGs again as I ever have been. I mentioned last week that I'm looking into potentially picking up Dragon Quest if the price is right. I'm trying to think if there's any other games that have been on my radar. I can't think of any at this point. I might go back and replay Persona 5 because I never actually finished it because I got spoiled on the end and that completely killed anything that I had left in that game. Not to mention that I had like a bunch of other distractions that were coming out, so it made it really easy for me to get off the game. But other than that, I mean, I don't know what everybody else is like at this point, but I mean, because of the lack of time that I have, because that I work a full-time job again, because at one point I was unemployed for a good chunk of time. So it was very easy to just play games where I had to learn a little bit more or be able to spend a lot of extra time because I had that time. Now I don't. I'm working a full-time job. I do things like rec league sports a couple days a week. I'm now trying to do this stuff as well. I'm also got a crap ton of anime that I'm watching every week. So the amount of time that I have left for gaming is not what it used to be, which means I don't want to necessarily spend it with games that are either really hard or games that will take a long time to really get through. And in the sense of like a lot of these open world games, like Kingdom Hearts took me a good chunk of time to go through, but at the very least, those were games that I can pop in, play it for a couple hours and leave it thinking, okay, I did enough. Like right now I'm basically playing Horizon and I should be at Meridian at this point, and I've completely ignored that stuff. And I'm literally just exploring the entire map, going into places that there's no reason I should be able to go through. But again, because it's on story mode difficulty, I'm breezing through it. And I'm just having a blast doing that. And, as soon as I get to the point where I need to go back to the story, I'll be happy to do that and enjoy that as well. Because even though I'm overpowered, I can still find the fun in the fluidity of the movement in that game because, man, that game is really good when it comes to fighting in the way that you have to either go with the stealth approach. You can just go and whack the shit out of stuff, especially on story mode difficulty because your damage is a little bit better. I'm just enjoying the hell out of that stuff. And hopefully down the road, I mean, we're seeing too with all the single player games that are doing unbelievably well that single player and in general, like JRPGs and all of those kind of open world games are definitely on the up, at least with me. And I think they're starting to be on the up with people too, because I think the sheer like clusterfuck of battle royale games and massive multiplayer games, especially with even the looter shooters, because now we're getting a flood of like Destiny 76. Division 2 is about to come out if it hasn't already. I can't remember the dates for it. I think it might be this Tuesday. Anthem, and it's going to continue because Borderlands 3 is going to be announced on the 18th by the sounds of things, and that may be a massive online game like a lot of these new ones are. I'm hoping that they maybe stick to the co-op direction. But who knows? They may try to do what games like Destiny, Anthem, 76, and Division 2 are doing, and we'll have to see. But I think a lot of people are just getting straight worn out from those games. Like I'm completely burned out of Destiny. I don't know if I can ever go back to it, which sucks because I love Destiny. But I played so much that I just think it's over. I don't think I can go back to it unless I've got like a ton of friends to play with again. And right now, everybody's doing their own thing. So it makes it really difficult. So single player games end up being a fantastic addition for me. Speaking of single-player games, let's talk about EA because they love single-player games. EA is now pulled out of E3 as well, and I think this might have been over a week ago now. I think this might have been something that I missed last week on the Soapbox, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. But they've pulled out of E3 as well, which means at this point, I don't know who's announced for sure, but that would leave normally Microsoft, Ubisoft, and I think from last year, Square Enix was the only other one. Oh, wait, no, Bethesda, sorry, as well. So almost half of the usual suspects are gone because Sony pulled out. Nintendo hasn't been doing anything for a while. EA's pulled out. I feel like there might be one more, and I'm just forgetting who. I can't remember. But it's at a point where it's becoming very obvious that E3 may be a dying show, or not even dying show, maybe a dead show. It's very possible that the show is almost defunct by the time we get to 2020. Because, I mean, if this many people are pulling out, I mean, obviously we'll know next year if it's a consistent thing or if it's just a this year is just the weird year that people are not showing up. Because I think Sony deciding not to show up put a real interest on it. Because a lot of teams, you would have figured that they would have stayed because now the floors are open for them to really make a good push. But I think also with what we've heard about how much the E3 show charges for space and especially conferencing and all that, like it seems like an unviable thing to do. Nintendo got it right when they just do a stream and it doesn't cost them fucking anything. I think Sony, though, I still believe they pulled out because they have the PS5 ready to show off and they're going to do it on their own time. They don't want to have to put it up against all the other companies. Not to mention they would rather see what Xbox does because we're going to assume that Microsoft is going to be at E3 and will probably show up their next console. I would imagine at this point, considering all the talk is there, I think Xbox would want to be in front. But as per usual, Sony's taking the smart approach and seeing what they've got and seeing what they can compare to. So I believe that sometime, probably in the fall, we'll hear from Sony about what they're working on, and that we'll probably be looking at a new console probably around the holiday season in 2020. That's kind of where my bet's been for a while. I mean, obviously people are talking about a whole bunch of different times, but who knows? But I mean, with EA now even pulling about at E3, it starts to beg the question that there must be something really going on with the pricing that's even making like a company like EA not want to partake in this stuff. Because EA is more than happy of going on stage and stroking their own dicks, talking about sports games that only a select few of their audience plays, and trolling people by making them think you're going to make a good Star Wars game. So if they're pulling out, I feel like it has to be a monetary thing. Like they're even looking at the price of being like, fuck that, we can do our own thing too. That's what I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to suddenly start seeing, like, I don't know, like kind of like how you see like trade deadlines in sports where every channel is like, they stop whatever their normal schedule is to have like guys on and just talk about every single trade that happens, that kind of deal. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a day somewhere in the year where just all the companies kind of agree that that's where they're going to have their own specific streams, whether it still ends up working into an event. But I don't know about the E3 being a physical show anymore. I don't know how much longer that's going to go. And personally, it doesn't bother me that much because I would never go. I mean, I went to EGLX in Toronto, which is the biggest thing Canada has that's like E3. There's no conferencing, though, but it's mostly like big esports tournaments, a lot of indie developers showing off their stuff. And even then, I got to tell you, as I was walking around there, I was bored. I was bored as fuck. Mind you, I hate lineups, so I can't imagine people at E3 lining up for 3 to 4 hours to play the new Smash last year. I can't imagine that. That would have bored me to death. I probably would have been like, fuck this, I'm going home. But I don't know how much you can yield to physical shows anymore like this because it's just not financially viable. I'm starting to wonder now. And with, like I said, with EA even deciding that they want out, it kind of makes you wonder, if there really is kind of an end to it. So do I have anything else on that one? I'm trying to think. I don't think there's really much else I can add to it. I mean, other than the fact that it's going to be really interesting seeing what goes on this year, whether Microsoft really has all the floor they want. Ubisoft, I think, has an interesting position to be in at this point as well. You never know. Maybe some studios try to pick up the slack. I don't know. I mean, I can't remember if Bethesda said they were going or not. Square Enix may go. I mean, we're starting to hear a few things in the pipeline that maybe we're going to start getting some Final Fantasy announcements soon. So who knows? But I mean, this year is definitely looking to be interesting and not interesting at the same time because E3 may not be interesting at all, but post E3 may be really interesting depending on what Sony does, especially. So the last thing I got on the docket, and this might actually be even shorter than I thought. I've talked for a extended period of time now about censorship in video gaming and how I'm all over the place when it comes to that issue because it really depends on what we're talking about. So my initial position on censorship is it's dumb, and I think most of us can agree with that. But there was a point, at least tail end of last year, I saw a lot of posts about people bashing Sony because they were censoring stuff, and I'm not even being biased here. But let's be honest. At one point, every console is the censor console. Like, I looked at an article that I wrote on the blog a while ago about how Nintendo was constantly censoring shit, like Fire Emblem censored Tharja's like bikini clad in ass, which ended up looking a lot worse with the curtain they put over it. It looked like she had nothing on at that point. Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE had swimsuits for all the characters, and they took that away. Nintendo has been notorious for censorship as well. And PC with Steam. Steam was doing this a lot too, and they're still kind of are in that position. But naturally, the console war is a conversation people like to have. So when Sony's been on the train now of censoring stuff, and again, I don't agree that they're censoring a lot of these things because it doesn't make any sense. It's, people don't have to buy this shit. I mean, again, like we're still in this age where we're almost trying to pretend that video games are strictly for kids, and it's like, dude, your fucking core audience now is the 18 to 35 demographic. Like, don't kid yourself. Your core demographic are people that are old enough to be okay with a pair of tits. Let's be fair. But for the tail end of last year, a lot of the censorship that I saw coming from PlayStation 4 was mostly directed to visual novels. And I didn't agree with the censorship part of it, but I saw a lot of people using that as their hill to die on. And I would say repeatedly, guys, they're fucking visual novels that you can just Google the image to most of the time. Let's not make that our hill. It's not the hill. It's fucking like erotica. Like we can be okay with a couple of visual novels, maybe getting a few censors here and there. Considering they're not going to take Pornhub away from us, I think we're good. However, now Devil May Cry 5 got censored. And now we're seeing a lot of games of that ilk being censored. And now this is the point where I'm like, okay, now we need to have a proper conversation about this. Because the question that I really have to ask, and this is something that I brought up when I talked about Mortal Kombat suddenly covering up a lot of their female characters specifically. These are M-rated games we're playing, folks. So you know what that means. They're for people 17 and up. And remember, these are supposed to be games that retailers ID people for. So let's take into mind that these games that are being censored right now are games that are meant for adults, which means that they are okay with this content. So, by that logic, why are we censoring these games? The visual novel stuff didn't bother me as much, but now it's getting to a point that I'm like, okay, we really need to have a proper conversation about why Sony is suddenly going so ham on censoring everything that has some nudity in it. I would really love to know why. And the excuse that I remember hearing before about, being the kids' excuse, it's like, again, then don't sell M-rated games to minors. It's your responsibility too on that store to make sure that you're putting in the controls properly. And I'm assuming that the parental controls work, so that account probably can't buy M-rated games. However, if the parent's account is being used to buy those games, whether the parent is buying them for the kid because the parent isn't doing any research, well, that's the parent's fucking fault. If the kid is logging into the parent's account because the parent didn't code lock the account, that's also the parent's fault. So I go back to what I've said before in this conversation, where why the fuck can't we have the conversation where we actually say it's not up to Sony to suddenly have to censor everything. They shouldn't have to be in that position. Still don't know why they're doing it, but they shouldn't have to be in the position to censor stuff because people are getting upset. Because either kids are seeing this stuff, or in the case of the nudity debate, there's a lot of people in the social justice left that like to take shots at it. Not to mention the religious right seem to like to do it too. Again, I'm not going to pretend that neither side is clean here. Why are we kowtowing to people that aren't their core audience? Let's be honest here. The people that are part of the religious right or the social justice left, they aren't the people that are playing these games in majority. They might be 5% at best. I guarantee you, like that big debate that happened with Dead or Alive Extreme 3, for example, that's a game that never should have been censored in the first place for any reason, because that game is designed to be erotic. And if you censor any of that, then what was the fucking point of the game? Simple as that. And those people that were bitching about it endlessly, because believe me, I read a lot of stuff on it. Now that Dead or Alive 6 is out, I'm also reading a lot of stuff from these same fucking idiots that really don't care. Go back and watch the previous soapbox, I believe, because that's when I talked about it there. Or it might have been the third one. See, I'm already forgetting. It's been like I barely remember what I did yesterday. But people that are complaining about Dead or Alive, generally speaking, aren't people who played that series. You know, the Dead or Alive Extreme series, for example, I own the second copy and I wanted to own the third copy just to piss people off in spite of all those articles that got written. But I can't justify $90 for that. I've played it. It's nothing special. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're playing it for a game, I don't really know what you're looking for. I mean, you're playing it because it's titties. That's what it is. And the people that would buy that game are not going to be the ones that complain about it. So why are companies kind of kowtowing to people that were never going to buy the game in the first place? The idea that because I think it's Team Ninja that runs this for Dead or Alive, they decided not to release Dead or Alive Extreme 3 in the West. And they said it was because of the social justice outcry about the game. I still am under the mind that it's because they knew they wouldn't make any money out there, because I'm sure Dead or Alive Extreme 2 sales were so amazing, because I've never known somebody who owns it. Not that anybody would really tell you, but I mean, I used to go to EB Games all the time, and I'd ask people, has anybody ever bought a copy of that off the shelf? And no one has ever said yes. So it tells me that people aren't generally buying those games. A lot of it probably because of fear that they don't want to be embarrassed or judged, or just the fact that at that point, Dead or Alive Extreme 2, like, you didn't have as easy access to the internet to order stuff like that. Whereas now, like, Dead or Alive Extreme 3, if it was available on Amazon easily, like, people would just buy it and not even think about it. But because it wasn't shipped out west, you'd have to import it. There's a lot more money that goes to it, and people are just like, I can't spend that much on this. Like, I can Google image search most of this stuff. And that's kind of how it is. But I mean, when it comes to censoring games like that, especially in the case of not even releasing it in the West, like, don't pretend that it was because of outcry of people that never would have bought the game. Like, the Semren Kagura guys are not giving a flying fuck about what people are saying about it, because they know the people that are buying their stuff are not listening to what those people are saying. So going back to Devil May Cry, because that's the most recent example that I've been seeing lately, this is a game that was designed for a mature audience. So why are we making the excuse of children, or why are we trying to pretend that these need to be censored because we need to keep this away from the eyes of people? There's a reason that it has the ESRB label on it. It's because we know that the game is for people 17 and up. And by the way, one more year after 17, and you're legal enough to, like, you're legal to watch porn, not to mention participate. So you're not making a great case of why you shouldn't be able to see bare butt, why you shouldn't be able to see bare breasts. Hell, like, I'm of mind that if the game is M-rated, like, I don't like the X rating label, because I don't think the X-rated label should apply to anything other than straight up actual porn. Like, and I'm talking sex, like intercourse sex. I think nudity is something that you are allowed to do with the M-rated label, because I think people by the age of 17 can handle seeing breasts, can handle seeing ass, and hell, let's go above. I think anybody at the age of 17, unless you're homophobic, in which case, I don't care, you should be able to be okay with seeing a dick on screen. And I'm not talking like a lump under a pair of shorts. No, I'm talking straight up floppy dick or hard dick, any dick. There a dick, here a dick, everywhere a dick. You should be able to see that and not have an issue with it. But again, we are living right now in a society that really frowns again upon nudity and really doesn't seem to care about violence, which is a conversation I've had so many times and will never understand, because how are we so okay, especially in the US? I don't get it. How are people so okay with the act that brings death, but are so against the act that brings life? I don't get it. I don't think I ever will get it. I've tried to figure it out, and the only answer I can come up with is people are nuts. That's about as good as an answer I can come up with. I mean, at the end of the day, T rating means to me that you're at best going to see somebody in their underwear, at best. And I don't even know if that might be pushing it. I'm trying to think. I'm going to look up Persona 4's rating just to see what they actually did, because there is like a little bit of sexuality to it. Oh, it is still M-rated. I guess probably because of the sexual themes, because it is Yeah, you know what, that makes sense because there is the issue of death. There is the issue of homosexuality, transgender. There's a lot of issues in there that I think I could just that you can make sense of for being uh, considered, I guess, a little mature. I'm looking just for the sake of it. So Persona 3 was also M rated. I'm imagining then that would mean Persona 5 would have also been ESRB. I'm trying to figure that out right now, and Google is not being very cooperative with me on this one. The other two were easy. This one is not working as well as I wanted it to. So, as I completely talk myself out of this, it was M rated as well. So, bad example. But I mean, even then, like, there's not really necessarily anything that's too over the top. But I think it does kind of go into where we are, where seeing somebody with just a towel wrapped around them, or seeing somebody in a bikini, or talking about homosexuality, transgender issues, that it has to be M rated. I think that's a little weird. But I mean, I'm sure Final Fantasy had to be T rated, right? Final Fantasy 10. Let's see. You tell me that wasn't M rated, because that would be ridiculous. Okay, that was T rated, and that one has, a little bit of sexuality, because obviously Lulu has her big knockers. Riku at one point undresses a little bit, has her butt in the center of the screen in those green shorts. Still something that my teenage self has not forgotten. And that's a game that, so I'm starting to think that Persona was probably because of the themes that it uses. So Final Fantasy, for example, Riku's initial outfit, that like skin tight suit she's wearing when you know her as just like an Albed like drifter or a scavenger. Like, I swear to God, the first time I saw it, I thought she was naked. I swear to God, when I saw it for the first time, because the way the coloring is on that, I thought for sure that she was naked. And then obviously as it gets a little bit later on, I'm like, oh, okay, it's just a fucking bodysuit. But Yuna, you see a little bit of like side bra on the one side. Lulu obviously has her cleavage. So I mean, I don't think I would have a problem with that level of stuff. And now that I'm just reminding myself of the hot spring scene from Final Fantasy X-2, did they actually change the rating on that one? No, that was still T. And even though that's like got the girls like comparing breast sizes in the hot spring. So it does sound like it has a little bit more to do with full nudity, and has a lot more to do with the issues that are being brought up, obviously from looking back at Persona. I don't think that there should be a problem in any game if characters are walking around either in somewhat sexual swimsuits and as well as their underwear. I think when you get to I think you can make a case if we're talking like the string bikini, like I'm talking like the stuff you see in Dead or Alive, where it's literally just string and like basically just covering nipples. Like I could see that being maybe a mature thing, just because it's a little extreme. But I think even then, I don't know. I think if it's not like showing genitalia or showing like nipples for women, although I think you could even make a case of that now, because a lot of countries now it's legal to be topless. Most people don't do it, obviously, but I think you could still make a case that like seeing a person completely naked, like from the back, so seeing bare back, bare butt, all that. If you're not seeing any genitalia, I don't see that being a problem for a T-rated game. But obviously there is I guess the guidelines that they use for that and have an issue with it. Personally, I don't think that is a problem, but if that's what they want to go with, then that's what they want to go with. But I think in terms of a T-rated game, it should be okay. Same goes for sexual. Like, I really do feel like the mature rating should be more of a violence thing. And if it's going to have to do with sex, it should have to do with like actual like implied sex. Like, take a look at what Dragon Age and Mass Effect and games like that do. That deserves an M rating. That absolutely should have an M rating. But if it's just partial nudity, or even like nudity without showing, like I said, showing genitalia, I don't see why that's a problem for a T rating, because again, it's still 13 and up. And by that, most of those kids have hit puberty and they have probably come across this kind of shit. So it's not like they don't know. So we need to, like, the whole idea of hiding it just drives me crazy. I don't get why we are trying to like hide people of sexuality, because clearly it works so well with how like over the top sexuality has become in the last 5 years. Like really sheltering kids has done such a great job over the years. Like we've seen throughout history that sheltering the youth has worked so well throughout our history, right? Because they've never gone counterculture. Never. Absolutely never. They're all like the good homeschool kids from South Park, you know? It's just perfect. Absolutely perfect. Oh, wait, no, I'm completely bullshitting. Okay, so when it comes to Sony, because we're going to go all the way right back to where we were. Sony, if they're censoring all these M-rated games that are already expected to be for adults, there's no need to do it. I don't care what your reasoning is at this point. I was trying to defend you guys for a while when it was the visual novels because, again, that's your prerogative. If you want to censor that stuff, whatever. I mean, it's stuff that most people don't buy, so it's not that big a dent. If you're going to go out and censor a game like Devil May Cry, and then let's say down the road, like a new Final Fantasy comes out and there's full nudity, and you're like, oh, you can't have that. You have to censor that too. Any game of that ilk, if it's got an M-rated label on it, and you are censoring nudity, especially, because again, I don't understand why we're censoring that shit. Because from what from what I understand, they just censored a bare ass. Really? You censored that? Like Devil May Cry with Dante like being naked and slowly dressing in the fight scene, like that's great censorship because it's funny. Doing what a lot of show, like I hate anime when it comes to the light screen that just covers up enough, or the fog, or like the steam, and or like the soap suds. Like I fucking hate that because it's like, dude, either show it or don't. If your intent was to show it, then you need to just deal with the fact that you're gonna have to like it looks dumb. There needs to be better ways. Either that or just make a second version of it where you're not seeing that part. Like instead you flip around where you don't see genitals or you don't see nipples or you don't see any of that stuff. Because if that's what the censors have a problem with, you can figure out a way to get around that. But either way, like fuck. It's getting to the point now that I can't escape it, and I can't escape trying to defend Sony for anything they're doing now, because now it's just getting ridiculous. It might have been beforehand and I just wasn't paying attention to it. Now it's like, man, this is getting silly. At the end of the day, like, fuck, man, it's just butt. It's just boobs. It's not that big a deal. I don't get what the problem is. And if it's outcry from the fucking left, don't listen to them because they don't buy this shit. They don't play. A lot of the people that are complaining don't play the games that they're complaining about. They would rather have games like Beyond Eyes all the time or Gone Home. Like, I don't have a problem with Gone Home, by the way. But they would rather those games. And those games are good for a little bit, but they get boring really quick. I like games that are over the top and silly. I mean, it's why I like harem anime, because harem anime doesn't give a fuck. It's just fun. It's silly. It's ridiculous. It's honestly sometimes downright retarded. And that's why I like it, because I don't have to take it seriously. Everybody's taking so much stuff seriously now, and it's like, dude, just let it go. If you don't like it, like anybody who has a problem with like Dead or Alive's like sexuality, or games that have like certain characters in the main role and not somebody else, like again, you don't have to play it. And in Sony's case, you should know better. Stop trying to like censoring a butt on Devil May Cry is not just suddenly going to make like 50,000 people suddenly buy your game. It might make 2 people buy it. Just leave the shit as it is. Because clearly, we've seen with a lot of games that when you leave people to their own devices and they make stuff that is passionate and stuff that they're doing because that's what they want to do, people buy it because they can see the passion. There's a reason why there are a lot of EA games that are not doing so hot as compared to what they used to, is because people can see right through them and see that it's just a marketing ploy and it has nothing to do with passion for gaming. It has nothing to do with writing a good game or making a good game. The intent is to get profits. There are games out there that are being made with pure passion, and that because there's a little tiny bit of nudity in it, we have to censor it all of a sudden. Stop. I used to not care. It's at the point now that I have to not only care, but I can't do this shit anymore. Get your shit together, Sony. I know nobody's going to hear this from Sony because, who the fuck am I, right? But it's to a point now that it's beyond insane. You are becoming the Maud Flanders of the gaming industry right now. And it used to be that it was like a flip-flop between consoles, and now it's you guys. And it's solely you guys. Because now people are more mad at Steam and Epic because of their little war they're having. They're kind of forgetting what Steam was doing for a while. You are on full screen now, Sony. Everybody's got their attention on you when it comes to the censorship issue. Because Nintendo is allowing all this stuff now. Nintendo, the people who would never have M-rated games on their console, they're the ones that aren't censoring now. That's insane. Because Nintendo has always been the censor kings. You've now taken the crown. And I hope that you enjoy the lack of sales that you're going to see in a lot of games, and that your store is going to see a few less sales, because people are starting to get really sick and tired of this, and including people like me who were kind of staying back and just letting things go. Because when the crossplay issue happened, I stood back and didn't give a fuck, because I knew that you guys would get to it eventually on your own time, because you didn't have to go after it right away. And we're already seeing, for example, like with Nintendo now having to limit who can play Fortnite with what a console because of performance issues, giving other consoles an advantage. We're seeing with the crossplay issue that, again, there were kinks in the system that people weren't thinking about. So for them to push Sony as quickly as they were was ridiculous. But this is not that. This is not crossplay. Crossplay is something that people can be patient about. This censorship thing is not a patient issue anymore. This is not a test of patience. This is not a test of resolve. This is a test of how much longer do you want people to be happy with you before you start really pissing people off. I dare you to go and censor the biggest game on the market that's next. I dare you. The next major AAA game that has like just a bare butt again, or just some sort of like some tangible amount of sexuality. I dare you to censor it and watch just the absolute shitstorm. Because now not only are you on the censor police's radar, now you're on most gamers' radar, because this has gotten too far. I've said it so many times, even in this podcast alone, there's nothing wrong with nudity. I don't understand why people have issue with it. So you don't need to either. We didn't ask for you to police this. Your fan base did not ask for this. The people that don't buy your shit are the ones that complained. Don't listen to them. Listen to the people that actually fucking make your profits. This whole idea of tipping the scales toward the people that don't give you as much money is getting old. I don't know enough about the 90s to be sure if there were a lot of people tipping because of all the outrage from especially the religious right. But I don't think it was really that bad. And I think that's because the media was never really the religious right in the gaming industry. It's always been a left industry. And because the social justice left is so prevalent in media, you think that it means that the core of gamers don't like all these nudie games or don't like sexual content in games. And I think what you're forgetting is that the people that are now the journalists for gaming these days don't fall in line with the core audience anymore. Because we've seen again and again that when they complain about something, more people in the gaming community turn around and go, that's fucking bullshit. So whether it's the please think of the children right or the no sexism left, stop listening to both. Listen to the people who buy your shit. Because most of us will tell you when it comes to, say, nudity and stuff of that ilk, we don't really care. You know what we care about? The game being good. As I say now, I'm tired of all these articles that talk about, like the Dead or Alive articles, for example, talking about how, well, it's a little less bouncy, titty bang bang stuff from like the old games. Don't care. I don't care what your opinion is on how a character looks. I don't care about what the gender of a character is. All these articles that are talking about gender, race, sexuality, all this shit, I don't care. Tell me if the game is good, because the game being good is what's going to make me buy the game. If I'm a person who's buying a game strictly because of who is in it, as in terms of the gender of the character, the sex of the character, the race of the character, the sexual orientation of that character, then I don't think I'm a gamer anymore, because clearly I'm not buying for the love of the game. I'm buying for a political bias. And when it comes to censorship in any aspect, politics have been playing a big part in that recently, and I'm fucking tired of it. Let's stop. Play the games we like, and let the people who are making the games that we like do what they want. If they go over the line, like let's say they put straight up sex in it, where they show everything, then we can talk about the X-rated label. Then we can talk about censorship. But if it's just a bare butt, we're fucking crazy. And that needs to stop now before it gets ridiculously out of hand to the point that we can't even have a person take off their shirt. So with that being said, I was about right. About 45 minutes. We're just hitting 46 now. That's going to do it for the show. I'm pretty happy with how things are starting to go, because now I'm getting into the habit of doing YouTube again. I did my first standalone with the Morgan Riley thing. This podcast is now going 3 episodes straight. I don't see it having any reason of ending. And now I'm starting to figure out how to work with the blog page a little bit. I thought it was going to take me a lot longer. I've already got a couple of ideas. So hopefully I can find a way to balance both. Now, the only problem is I'm never going to be able to get to the social media game. This is the thing that friends have like talked to me about how I don't really push a lot on like social media. I don't like using social media. Like I really have had so much trouble like staying consistent on it. Like Instagram, can't do. Snapchat, I won't even touch. Twitter, it took me forever to get on, and I can't be bothered to sit on Twitter forever. It's just not possible. Even like I surf on Reddit a lot, but I surf more on it to find like stuff to read and stuff to find out. I rarely comment on Reddit. So like even in general, I don't, that's the part of my game that's probably going to be a never-ending work in progress. But at the very least, I'm happy with the content again. And that was the main goal once I moved into this new place, was to establish, a comfort with the content I was putting out again, because I was disappointed in myself because I didn't feel like I was doing a good enough job. So that's all that. And thanks for watching. I don't think I saw anybody popping onto this stream. We'll see what happens with the VOD. As per usual, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. You can follow me on Twitter at askcsradical. I can't guarantee I post a lot of stuff on there. The blog is csradical.com, where it is starting to pick up again. Hopefully it will stay that way now that I'm starting to find a groove potentially. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week on the podcast, whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday. We'll have to see. I love the idea that I can just call it the Sunturday podcast. I just kind of have fun with that. I mean, I want this to be a consistent Saturday morning at 9 a.m., but I'm not going to make it a hard time, because if I do that, it's going to have to make me say no to people to doing get-togethers or family things that, I don't want to be an asshole and be like, sorry, I have to stream to maybe one person this morning. So, if this was something where my channel had like 100,000 subscribers and there were at least like 1,000 people watching every single one of these streams, then I think we could make a case. But we're not there and may never be there. So I'm not really going to take it too seriously. So the idea is for every Saturday at 9 a.m. If I end up being busy on a Saturday morning, it will end up just being Sunday. In the case of last week, it was mostly because I was watching Captain Marvel that weekend and it made sense to just carry it over. So if stuff like that happens, we might do that. Like I might be seeing Avengers Endgame on the Saturday again, which means I'll probably push that show to Sunday morning. But either way, that's just the plan of things. So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and we'll see you next week.